Welcome to Sense of Style. My name is Stuart, and this is 8 untamed scents for the lone wolf. And a lone wolf, according to Google, is self-reliant, introspective, and unswayed by the opinion of others. We are talking about a very strong, very potent personality to do things on their own without worrying about other people, without getting help from other people. We are talking about untamed fragrances. These are going to be strong. And because we're talking about a man here, these are going to be masculine. They're going to be powerful. They are going to be different. Fragrance number 1 is Dior Fahrenheit, the gasoline fragrance. Now, the gasoline smell comes from the violet leaf. A violet leaf by itself does not smell like gasoline. Violet leaf, though, is a light, airy, but still sharp kind of note. It's got a little bit of an industrial feel to it. But boy, oh boy, if you pair it with a lot of leather and 4 woody notes, yeah, it's going to come across as gasoline, and this has it in spades. It never used to, though. Back in the day, this came out in 1988. If you bought a bottle of this, you would have to wait 2 or 3 years of maceration before you got that gasoline smell. The bottles they make today, and this is a modern bottle, you get that gasoline right away. Now, I don't know if Dior did this because of IFRA regulations and they had to change the formula, or if they did it on purpose. But it wouldn't surprise me if they did it on purpose because, let's face it, a lot of people, including me, like the smell of gasoline. Now, I don't exactly get gasoline from this entirely, but I do get industrial smell, and I do know what everyone is talking about. If you like the smell of gas, give this a try. This is definitely a lone wolf fragrance. Fragrance number 2, Mancera Oud Vanille. And if you ever wondered, Stuart, what does a barnyard Middle Eastern oud really smell like? I would say try the opening of Mancera Oud Vanille. Oh my God, for 20 to 25 minutes, you are going to get a pungent mix of barnyardy oud with gaiac wood, which is a very strong, pungent, smoky wood. Those two things are in abundance early on, and it's horrible until the vanilla starts to really kick in, and it turns into a beautiful, warm, smooth, super long-lasting, and super projecting experience. It turns into a lovely fragrance, and I'm talking like 12-hour performance. However, you got to get past that first 25 minutes, and that's what makes this a lone wolf fragrance, because you're going to want to be alone for that first 25 minutes. Now, this is still worth a purchase if you really like oud and you live in a cool climate. I used to wear this on walks all the time. I had a full bottle, and the only reason I traded it was not because of the open. It was because I'd hardly used it over a 4-year period. I mean, basically, it's 1 or 2 sprays. It's so strong, and you can really only appreciate it in the winter. I had 120 milliliters. I felt like I didn't really need all of that. But if you bought a 30 milliliter of this, it would last you forever. And if you live in a cold climate, it's fantastic. Fragrance number 3 belongs on this list. But if you haven't tried it, it's going to sound super weird and really strange. But trust me, Dior Homme Parfum is a very potent leather fragrance that also has oud, and it's got an earthy accord and an animalic accord. Now, people are thinking, what? An animalic accord in Dior Homme Parfum? Isn't that like super fancy schmancy? No. It's a mixture. It's one of the weirdest and most polarizing fragrances out there. If you wear this in the right situation, oh my God, super sophisticated. But you cannot, and I repeat, cannot wear this at work. This has 10 to 12 feet of projection. This is not going to work in the office. This is not going to work in the summer either. This is a heavy leather fragrance with oud facets and an animalic accord. This is a very strong, powerful fragrance. It's so strong, in fact, that the iris here, this is no namby-pamby Prada Lum light and airy iris. No, this is a thick, dense, rich iris because it has to be. Otherwise, nobody would be able to smell it. This is the most masculine iris fragrance on the market. And if you really want to be a strong, powerful lone wolf, I cannot think of a better fragrance to wear. Fragrance number 4 is the original Givenchy Gentleman. Now, this is a vintage bottle. My father owned this. This was purchased in the 1980s. Now, there is a new formula. I owned a bottle of it. It's called Givenchy Gentleman 1974, and the dry downs between the two are unbelievably similar. However, the openings are significantly different. I'm talking about like the first 20 minutes at least. And the interesting thing is never, ever let anybody convince you that every fragrance goes bad. Because this bottle, I mean, over 30 years old, but the opening in this has turned into like a vintage wine. It's absolutely stunning. And as I said, the dry downs in this and the new bottles are very similar. But yeah, fragrances are going to change. I would say probably most of them will at some point go bad. Some of them will just change and get weird. The molecules will get weird and you'll end up with a different fragrance. And then some of them will turn into a nice fine wine like this. Now, the fragrance itself, though, is beautiful. It's fundamentally a patchouli fragrance, so very masculine, but it's also got civet, which is an animalic note, and it's super pungent. You really pick that up in the opening of the Givenchy Gentleman 74 bottle. Not so much here. I think it's gone away. Then it also has an awful lot of leather as well. There is some honey, but you're essentially getting the very first, or one of the very first, hyper-masculine fragrances. Antaeus and Kouros owe their very existence to this fragrance. But as it dries down, it becomes nice and smooth and patchouli. A beautiful fragrance can be very, very masculine early on, though. The nickname of fragrance number 5 is the Black Beast. It is Xerjoff Regio. And a lot of people out there have compared this to Tom Ford's Black Orchid. I don't like those people because they have no idea what they're talking about. Now, I will grant that they are both dark, spicy floral fragrances. Fair enough. However, let me explain. This has a combination of geranium and cinnamon that is spicy floral, harkening right back to the 1940s. That is essentially the core of Old Spice. Nobody would ever consider that to be feminine. It's actually considered to be quite masculine. Maybe old manish, I'll grant you, but not feminine in any way. Whereas the floral component with Black Orchid is an orchid. It's a feminine note. I'm sorry, but don't in my presence ever compare this to Black Orchid. I have Black Orchid. I like it, but this is completely different. Now, to be fair, this is the most complex fragrance that I own. There are a ton of notes in here that you can pick up at various times. It is a confusing fragrance for sure. So aside from that geranium combo, you do get a vanilla, plum, and cardamom combination that is very modern, right? But that's what causes the confusion. You know, you smell this and at times you're like, you sort of pick up, oh yeah, that very modern vibe. But you just can't get away from that carnation, that 1940s, very old-fashioned, old manish, well, that's what they call it, feel, right? So that's why it's not super popular, because it confuses people. Super powerful. One of the most fascinating experiences I've had with a fragrance, but to me, that carnation, that power of the fragrance definitely makes it lone wolf. Fragrance number 6 owes its name to the Ramones, Blondie, and Talking Heads. It is John Varvatos' Dark Rebel Rider. And I say that because John Varvatos in Manhattan is the same location that they used to have CBGB's, the #1 punk venue in the United States, where all the bands I talked about got their initial start. They wanted to have a connection to the space that they now own, and they decided to come up with the name Dark Rebel. right? So this is Dark Rebel Rider, the very first flanker for the original. And this really does, especially early on, have a bold, masculine feel that exemplifies a Dark Rebel. Now, as the fragrance dies down, it does turn into a much softer version. But either way, they're both very, very pleasant, both the opening and the dry down. The problem with this fragrance, and I hate it when houses do this, the problem with this fragrance is the performance is about 3 hours, so it's not strong enough. But John Varvatos come out and say, oh no, we wanted to do that. We planned it that way. I'm like, give me a break. But anyway, it's still a really lovely scent, and I think it's niche-like in a couple of ways. I find the formula to be high quality. I don't get a synthetic feel. And that scent is completely original, completely, and pleasant, right? So you're getting a lot of leather. Obviously, this guy's decked out in a real leather jacket here. You can actually take this thing off. And then you're going to get a lot of mildly sweet resins, like the warm resinous feel. There's total balsam, there's olibanum, and there's a general resins note. And it's just really pleasant. And it's still around. It's been discontinued, but you can still get this super reasonable price, 125 milliliters for $50. I just checked the discounters before I got online. I didn't talk about this for a while because you couldn't get it, but you can get it now. As long as you're okay with the 3 hours performance, this is a lovely scent. Fragrance number 7 just had to be on this list. This is Bentley for Men Intense, and this is a super pungent, super powerful, boozy fragrance that really has a rebellious spirit to it. It has a lone wolf feel, especially the open. The open is just absolutely monstrous and boozy. So be careful out there if you're putting this on before you're going out and driving, right? So it's a lot of rum, incense, tons of woods, and a leather note, but it's the booziness of this, for me anyway, that creates kind of this toxic opening. It does have a lot of people that say, yeah, it's got a niche aspect to it. And I will say this, in terms of performance, it is monstrous. In terms of originality, it's very different than everything else out there. But to me, the scent itself is just too polarizing. It's just not appealing enough in general for me to consider it niche. So yeah, I don't consider it niche, but some people do. It's quite inexpensive, definitely masculine and lone wolfy. Fragrance number 8 is Encre Noire à l'Extrême by Lalique. And the Encre Noire line has to be on here because even though it is a sophisticated vetiver fragrance that has a high quality feel, oftentimes for the user, the people that put it on themselves, it doesn't smell that way when you put it on. It takes a long time to figure out. I had Encre Noire Sport. To me, it was just like, what the hell is this? I just didn't get it. And then after a while, I finally figured it out. And I do prefer this because this has an ambery quality that comes from the resins here. But basically, the formula is this. You've got a lot of vetiver in the base. You've got a very fresh cypress note in the mid, and then they'll do something else as a twist. In this case, it's the ambery quality with the resins. So it's a mildly sweet. And to me, it makes it more wearable. It is still, vetiver is still very masculine. So it is more on the sophisticated side of the lone wolf, but it still belongs there. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this list. It's a little bit different. That thumbnail's a little bit different. And yeah, I like to work on my themes and try and vary it as much as I possibly can. Hopefully you're enjoying it. Thanks for watching.